Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let me ask you something. What if that feeling, of being torn between two worlds, wasn't actually a weakness, but a kind of superpower? Today, we're going to dive into the incredible memoir by actor Jassa Ahluwalia, because he found this totally radical new way to think about identity.
I mean, just listen to that. That one sentence, he actually wrote it after this really confusing family wedding. And it just perfectly captures this feeling that basically defined his life. It's that struggle, right? Being caught between cultures, where you feel like you belong everywhere and nowhere, all at once.
And for Jassa, this wasn't some abstract idea. No, this was his daily reality growing up. So, picture this. Jassa's world was this constant mix of two completely different realities. He had a white English mum and a brown Punjabi dad, so his childhood was literally split down the middle. At home, he's with his Punjabi grandparents in Leicester, speaking Punjabi, eating roti and dal. But then he steps into school and boom, it's a totally different universe. English accents, canteen lunches, the whole thing.
And this feeling of being an outsider, it could just pop up anywhere. Get this, he's in rehearsals for a play surrounded by other Punjabi actors, people he should feel at home with. And a castmate just casually says to him, "You're not brown enough to make that joke." Oof, that had to cut deep. It was just this brutal reminder that even within his own heritage, he wasn't quite fitting in. And this whole struggle, it wasn't just in his head. He tried to process it all by writing a short story he called Alienation. But when he shared it with his mom, well, her reaction was just heartbreaking. She actually choked up, feeling like she had somehow failed him as a parent. Can you imagine? That moment just brought everything into sharp focus, the real painful impact of it all. And it left him with this one huge, overwhelming question. Who am I?
So that question, who am I, it basically launched him on this massive quest to find some real answers. And he looked everywhere for some kind of model, some way to understand himself. He dug into history and found these fascinating figures called the White Mughals, Europeans back in the 18th century who completely integrated into Indian culture. So okay, that proved it was possible to bring two worlds together. Then, in his own field, acting, he had to confront this really ugly history of half-casting, where actors like him were literally forced to hide who they were. He even found a clue in a fantasy novel of all places. This idea that getting back something you've lost isn't some magical gift. It's something you earn through a lifetime of work.
But here's the thing. All of these were just pieces, fragments of a puzzle, not the whole picture. Every clue felt partial, and he was still stuck in that void. The real answer, the one that was going to change absolutely everything for him, came from a place I guarantee he never expected to look: quantum physics.
Yeah, I know, it sounds totally unrelated. But that's the point, right? Sometimes a completely fresh perspective is exactly what you need to change everything. So one day, he's just watching a documentary by the physicist Brian Greene, and he learns about one of the most famous and, frankly, most baffling experiments in all of science. It had nothing to do with his life, or so he thought, but it turned out to be the perfect metaphor for everything he was feeling. Okay, so let's break this down because it's a little mind-bending. At the heart of this experiment is this wild idea. A tiny particle, like an electron, when nobody's looking at it, acts like a wave of pure possibility. It literally goes through both slits at the same time. But the second you try to observe it, to see which slit it went through, it chooses. It collapses from being in a state of both and becomes either or. Just by looking at it, you force it to pick a side. And that was his light bulb moment. He realized, oh my gosh, my identity works the exact same way. Inside, on his own, he felt like that wave, all possibilities at once. He was both Punjabi and English, completely and totally. But the second the outside world looked at him, when someone asks, so where are you really from, or tells him he's not brown enough, bam, he's forced to collapse into just one thing, a simplified, single-particle version of himself.
This wasn't just some cool thought experiment for him. No, this became a genuine call to action.
He took this huge, complex idea from quantum physics and boiled it down to something simple, powerful, and easy to share: a hashtag.
So what does both not have really mean? Well, it's a complete rejection of that pressure to choose a side. It says that a mixed identity isn't 50-50. No way. It's 100-100. It's all about embracing that beautiful, messy ambiguity and celebrating the richness of being in that state of both without ever having to flatten yourself into an either-or just to make somebody else more comfortable.
And he didn't just sit on this idea. He put it out there. And it started so simply.
Just a lo-fi, impromptu video of him in his dressing gown, making dal with corn and speaking Punjabi. And it just blew up. It went viral. That led to a TEDx talk in Chandigarh, which is amazing, because the city itself is the capital of 2 different states. It's a both, not half city. And then came an award-winning documentary for the BBC. It just proved that this was a conversation thousands, maybe millions of people were desperate to have.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in real life? How do you take an idea from quantum theory and actually live it?
For Jasa, adopting this both not half mindset was completely transformative. That feeling of being totally alone in a void, it was replaced by a sense of belonging, of finally being seen by a community that just got it. It gave him a framework to connect all these separate, confusing moments from his life into one single story that made sense. And that pressure he always felt to prove himself, it was gone. Instead, he felt empowered to just share who he was, which is exactly what he did when he wrote his book.
And this is the really powerful takeaway here. This idea, it's so much bigger than just mixed heritage identity. It's a lifeline for anyone who has ever felt forced into a neat little box, anyone who feels like society's labels are just too small and too simple to capture who they really are.
So Jasa's journey from that painful void all the way to the beautiful, weird world of quantum physics, it really leaves us with a big question to think about. It challenges all of us to look at ourselves and ask, what parts of my own identity have I been told are just fractions, when they could in fact be completely and beautifully whole?